Well, welcome everyone. This is our first official Zoom call with both the US and the UK 100 strong together. And we're so thrilled to see everyone. And we're so excited to tell you about our first joint trip, which we just completed a month ago to Sierra Leone. And it was a incredible experience for all of us. You'll hear more about that. But I wanted to sort of introduce how we got to Sierra Leone and how 100 Strong specifically got involved with this program of ending child marriage. Back in the dark days of the pandemic, one of our first calls when we were all learning to Zoom was with the First Lady of Sierra Leone, Fatima Bayo. And she literally leapt through your computer screen discussing this topic. She was passionate, she was animated, she was larger than life. And I think we all got completely bowled over because our next call was like, what are we going to do? And how can we help? And how can we get involved? So we were sort of lucky that we had this, ask, you might say, from the First Lady, because she truly inspired us to think very specifically about this topic and to go out there, raise money, work with our team in Sierra Leone, and make this pilot project happen. So it's a thrill for us who were there on that first call with the First Lady to actually see the pilot completed and to see its success and to take it to the next level, which is even more exciting. So I welcome all of you, and we look forward to sharing what we saw and what we hope to achieve. So I'd like to introduce my cohort on the UK side, the fabulous Natasha Kaplinsky. Natasha.
Anya, thank you so much. And hello to everybody I don't know. Yes, indeed. My name is Natasha Kaplinsky, and I am the co-founder of our UK Women's Network. And I've been an ambassador for Save the Children for, I guess it's approaching 20 years now. So I'm a very proud member of the team. I'm delighted to be co-hosting today with my new best friend, Anya, as we share some of the highlights of our incredible trip in Sierra Leone. As Anya said, just a few weeks ago in February, it really was that kind of magical moment in time when you got home. It's like, did I just go there? That was really, really, really special. And I too remember that really special webinar where the First Lady, as you said, just jumped out on the screen and she gave us something to really do, and we've done it. So yeah, it feels like we've been on this journey together for quite some time already. It was so special to see the impact of the Ending Child Marriage project in person, which of course our UK network funded through our collective fund called the Girls Impact Fund, which sits alongside the amazing commitment of 100 Strong. And we really do look forward to sharing our thoughts with you on this call and all of our experiences. And also there are a number of other very inspiring women who were on that trip with us. And so a little bit later, we're going to be hoping that they share some of their experiences as well. But Anya, I've got loads of highlights from that trip, but why don't you start by sharing some of yours?
Okay, well, first of all, there's so many. From meeting everyone, both on the UK side and actually face-to-face meeting people on the American side too. We were very lucky. We had with us, unfortunately, she's not on the call today, but Carolyn Miles joined us. And it was a thrill to have her because every time we travel with Carolyn, we learn so much from her. Not only how to negotiate situations, but her just breadth of experience in this world of, humanitarian help is just amazing. And so we were super lucky to have her with us. I'm always picking up things like when you're speaking with the children, you sit down and you approach them on their level. She always seems to have the most amazing sense of time, and it's almost like an endless feeling of time when she's speaking to whoever she's speaking to. So that was one of my thrills, was actually traveling with Carolyn. So that's just a on a personal note. But on the, and of course, meeting everyone else. I mean, we spent many, many hours in a van traveling on roads that were, Corinne, much better than South Sudan, but but they were a little rough in spots, and it was a lot of time. And so we definitely we were foisted together, and we got to know each other quite well, and that was a fabulous experience as well. I'm not going to talk about the actual program because we're going to see pictures of it, but if you'd like, maybe we can cue the photographs, and I'd like to introduce some of the other people on the team who went, and we'll ask them to weigh in as the photographs come up. But
Yeah. Anya,
Natasha,
can I share
sure,
a little bit of my
of course, sorry.
as well? Simply because I mean, you said it was the meeting of two teams, and for us, that was just such a massive thing, bringing together the sisterhood, essentially, of members from the US and the UK networks joining that trip. I mean, as you said, you all met in the US, but actually to meet you, we've all been so excited to work with you, and the opportunity to actually meet was really very special. And you're right, we made firm friends very, very quickly. And so it felt extra special to build that real unity and that friendship across the kind of global female network, knowing that actually we are so much stronger when we work together. And something very special about meeting a group of women who, we've all looked at each other on Zoom squares and looked at our backgrounds and thought, oh, I think I know that person well, just from kind of communicating. But taking us out of those Zoom squares and actually having the opportunity to meet in person, to share our views, our perspectives on the world. And I guess that acknowledgement of the enormous privilege that we all have, but underpinned by that sense of real responsibility that we all, are driven by to help change the world. That for me was really special, because whether or not you live in one corner of the US or a corner of the UK, we're still women, and we still feel like we have to do something to help our kind of sisterhood around the world. So for me, that was really the most special thing. And also, I guess we met so many people, Anya, didn't we, while we were there? Not just the country team and Dee and everybody who really were just so inspirational. And I know from past trips how important these trips are to the country team themselves, to be recognized, to be acknowledged for all the amazing work that they do. But also, the people that we were able to meet after that, as you referred, Anya, to that incredibly long drive that we had, to meet the girl champions themselves, who were really brave to share their stories through a translator about their own experiences of being part of, early child marriage, and how important that Ending Child Marriage project is to transforming their lives, not just this generation, but the generations to come, and how they shared their stories of resilience and strength, and how the project that we are all funding together has enabled them to become so much more confident and empowered. They share their influence, don't they, to protect the other girls in the community. And that for me was really striking, how those girls, had developed a sense of real courage and responsibility. And also, I don't know, those of you who remember that on the trip, we met a mummy queen, and she's just like a beacon in the community, who helps kind of set the agenda, the most respected woman. And I just love the idea of being a mummy queen. So I think, I wouldn't necessarily say that my kids would call me a mummy queen, but the mummy queen I thought was lovely. But I mean, there was some significant stuff as well, wasn't there, Anya? Everything's about timing. I think that our visit happened at just the right time. We appear to have kind of built a real momentum, haven't we, in Sierra Leone, to galvanise those ongoing efforts to fight child marriage at a real national level. And Save the Children in Sierra Leone is now helping to push through. I'm sure you're going to talk a bit more about it, Anya. That standalone Ending Child Marriage private members bill, which really will outlaw child marriage across the country. So we've had some lasting change, and working with parliamentarians, with ministers, the first ladies you refer to, to push this private members bill, it is really significant.
Well, this is also another thing that we really saw in action, what SAVE does really well. and that is bring constituencies from every level of government, from the first lady down to the community organizer in Kowloon. It's like the breadth of the kind of contact that Save the Children makes in the field, both on a national and a local level, is really breathtaking and quite unique. And we got to see it firsthand. And so that was thrilling. I mean, we spent time with the amazing minister of gender equity, I think it's called, and child protection, Dr. Isata. I can never pronounce her last name, but she was such an inspiration. Her story, being a 15-year-old mother herself, was just so compelling and so fascinating. It was just very, very cool to be present with people of that level in government, but also just to hear their personal stories as well. It was really thrilling. So let's get on to the pictures, because I feel like you're seeing talking heads now. We have to show you some visuals.
She was a real change maker, wasn't she, that lady? I mean, just so inspirational.
She was amazing.
Incredible.
Amazing. So I have to pipe in here because this is Natasha at her best. Natasha will get in the middle of a crowd of children, and within 2 minutes, she's got them all dancing and singing, clapping and smiling and laughing. And she just has such a talent for this. And we saw this over and over again, and it was so much fun.
Mary, go ahead and advance. There you go.
Okay. Here is Dr. Isata, who is the Minister of Gender Equity. And she is one of the most powerful women I've ever met. Truly, our first stop was at a primary school. And she, first the teacher spoke, then the principal spoke. And then she got up to speak to this classroom of 100 children that are probably 10 years old. And guess what the first words out of her mouth were? She said, "Tell me what you know about sex." And, like all of us kind of looked at each other with our mouths open. And she proceeded to speak to them in their language and in English. Very, like unbelievable straight talk about sex, about, gender-based violence, about rape, about this, about that, about Bondo. I mean, she did not hold back on anything. And the kids ate it up. I think they were just so amazed that someone was just speaking honestly and directly to them. It was incredible. I'll never forget that moment. Do Allison or Susan, Lucy, do you have any?
I was actually going to say, oh, sorry.
Go
I was
ahead.
just going to say for me, I mean, you covered so many things with Natasha that I wholeheartedly agree with. But for me, one of the things that really sticks in my mind, and I think probably one of the most emotional times, was during and after the talk that she gave to the young children. Just because I think it was so raw and it was so honest, so unexpected in some ways. And she proceeded to sort of talk to them in childlike language. And then at the end, she stood there and I remember her saying, "What did I just say to you?" And she kind of like made them say it back to her, which I thought was a really good way of teaching and a really good way of making sure she was heard. And I think that was one of the points where I really had to fight the tears back, because it was so moving and so impactful and so honest. So this, just looking at this photograph, yeah, she's amazing. And it's, if you could only take her and duplicate her by 500 and have her doing that in every school, there would be a huge problem solved, I think. But yeah, great memories of that. What was that, 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Yeah, it was really, really striking. Very striking. Okay. I think that's with the teacher, right? Yeah. Allison, do you have any thoughts on this? Any memories?
Sure. I mean, it was a really wonderful visit to the school. I would say about the minister too. She's actually quite new at her job, and you wouldn't have realized that. She's only been in the position a few months. She had a pretty hilarious story about how she got the position too. But she was such a trooper to just, join us on this, 7-hour trip plus an overnight out into the eastern districts of the country, and clearly so driven, and such a great connector with children, and had a real sort of teaching sort of feel about her, and I just hope that she has all sorts of success in that position.
All right, next. Okay, this is, oh, those are those cute children. Tam, do you want to jump in?
I'd love to. Hi, everybody. To those of you I don't know, I'm Tamsin, and I'm Deputy Director of Partnerships and Philanthropy at Save the Children UK. This conversation here was in the room off to the side of the school with the headmaster, and this guy, the guy talking there is the representative of Save the Children there, and we're talking to the sort of the head man of the village and his wife, and the leading lady there. And one of the things that really humbled me and sort of slightly embarrassed me about this conversation was he talked about how honored he was that they've never had so many white people visit their village before, and it was a true honor. And honestly, I think we were all feeling at that point, no, really, the honor is all ours, and thank you for welcoming us so much. And one of the other things that the head teacher talked about a lot here was how much he wishes he could have a female teacher, because so many of the girls in his school need a female teacher to speak to about the things that are important to them. And truthfully, the problem that, they have in Sierra Leone is there's not even enough teachers qualified, let alone on the payroll. So, but he was saying a female teacher would make such a difference to these girls and to the conversations that we were having with Isata Mahoy and about, girls' rights. So many, even just in the space of a 1-hour visit, which I think was all we had at this school, we took such a lot of insight from it, didn't we? It was fascinating.
It really was. Okay. Yes. We were in New York.
That's how I pack when I go on holiday. I might have some things.
I was so amazed to see. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, Mary, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was so amazed to see how on those, cars were. I mean, that wasn't, we saw how many of those, dozens of those cars that look like that. So that was just shocking to me. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would also just weigh in and say, I think that sign, thank you for visiting New York. I think that's a challenge. That's intentionally, that area was named that as a challenge to New York as, such a highly visible and successful city, state in the United States. So I think that's a challenge, ladies, for those of us from the States.
There you go.
All right, next. Okay. All right, this was similar to South Sudan Road, but it was only the tail end of this trip, so it wasn't that bad. Next.
Got it in advance. Okay.
It felt longer on the way back though, didn't it, Anya?
It sure did. All right, here we have our favorite Paramount Chief, Mboma, who was really instrumental in changing the whole dynamic for his area. He's the one who brought together the 15 villages and created,
Yes.
with our help, the legislation that banned child marriage. So he's really the top leader locally for this effort. And he couldn't have been more compelling and more vociferous about how strongly he felt that this was such a great idea, which was wonderful to see. Anyone else?
I was gonna say,
He's slightly radical feminist, wasn't he? Sorry to cut across you, but I mean,
Yeah,
he
he was.
really was an amazing man.
Mhm.
Yeah. We also, I think, all believe that he has great potential to be a challenge, present a challenge to the other men, because it's a patriarchy, the whole country. So for him to be able to take that stance certainly speaks volumes about him as an individual, but he has such opportunity to elevate other people, other men and communities to buy in. And the group there really has to continue to, work with him and encourage that kind of outreach. 'Cause he's the one that's going to make a big difference, I believe.
Yeah, Susan, I would totally agree with that. I've had the feeling that he has really good relationships with the other Paramount chiefs. And so if he's able to help spread this and get bylaws adopted in other areas, that would be hugely helpful.
Mhm. All right, next.
I'm going to pause on this just so that, oh, go ahead. That's fine.
Sorry, someone wanted to say something?
These are the girl champions.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in to say how moved I was by the trust that they placed in us to stand up, to speak out, as the T-shirt says, because there was this endless stream, wasn't it? And it was a very long meeting where each girl champion wanted to share her story, and it felt like a very generous experience, because not only was she trusting us, which is quite a big thing to do, but I felt like they all felt a sense of responsibility to help those around them, and they believed in the process, and that was really heartening.
And it's interesting too, because when we first came in and sat in the room, the girl champions were sitting, at their desks, and they were not looking at us directly. I don't know if, I think culturally they're not encouraged to look at people directly, but once they actually got up to speak, they definitely projected, and they projected forward. And that was kind of an interesting thing to see, because, when we first came upon them, they were like definitely looking at us sideways, right?
Yeah, and I feel like the idea when we got there was that a couple of girls would get to tell their story. Not all of them, but they all obviously really wanted to. And I think we from the audience were all like, please, that's why we're here. We want to hear every single story if they want to tell us.
Yeah.
And I think, Mary, I'm wondering if this is the girl who's in that article about the cousins.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'll have to look.
I think this
Looks
might be
like her.
Yes.
There was an article that came out by Save the Children International on International Women's Day about the work that's being done on ending child marriage in Sierra Leone, and featuring two cousins, and also highlighting the very hopeful bill that the standalone bill that will end child marriage nationally, make it out illegal.
Okay.
Go ahead and advance.
Also, I was going to say, if you look at her shirt, the young girl's shirt, it's amazing how brave these young ladies were to, she's wearing the shirt that says it, and she's wearing this around town. I mean, everyone's seeing her in it. They're all projecting their stories. That takes a lot of courage for young women to break out of, the little hole that they're in over there. And so I give them a lot of credit, and especially this shirt speaks volumes. Even as you guys saw it, the minister has their shirt on in bright orange and says something about women's rights. And I'm like, good for you. I mean, they are walking the talk, and I think that's wonderful.
Thanks.
This is the mummy queen.
Yeah, the Chief Soe, right? Yeah. So the Soes are a very, very important economic force within every village and the general economy. And they have actually been, because they're so intimately involved with the Bondo ceremony and the whole coming of age from girlhood to womanhood within the country, they've been a major obstacle to legislative change around the whole issue of female genital mutilation and Bondo. And this particular Soe had taken the stance that she was no longer going to, and she was a chief Soe in the chiefdom, she was no longer going to be cutting. So this is also a very interesting dynamic that's starting to happen.
She had a very powerful presence. Unlike a lot of the girls, as Anya was saying, they didn't like to look directly at you. They seemed a little deferential. She was not. She felt her power and was she was a force to be reckoned with, I think.
She really was. Next. Okay. Okay, this is, now we're back, now we're in the health clinic, right?
That's right, Anya.
Okay. We can just keep going. The thing that impressed me about the health clinic was it was the first place we'd been to where when you walked in, there was actually a basin and or a bottle and you had to wash your hands. And so the message at this place was very much health first and health forward. And that was really great to see because this was just a small community health facility that SAVE is involved with. And there's so many different aspects to their work. This particular facility had a maternal hospital or health center where about 30 to 40 women a month delivered children. So we met the chief midwife here, and it was a really interesting visit. We got to hear from some of the stakeholders. We had a very impassioned talk from a woman who goes out and does sex education among the schools and among the community. And it was really interesting to, sort of hear the conviction that the staff had on these subjects. So that was interesting. That and the file cabinet we tried to save. So here I'm looking very seriously at some paperwork. And the reason I was so taken by all of this is I had, in my public health studies, learned about something called the Sentinel system, which is sort of the basis for the whole work of public health. And what it involves is that, when you look at a country and what's going on in various communities health-wise, they get all their information from places like this. And this woman was, in our countries, we're used to all of this being on a computer, someone in the clinic is entering in data and it gets, uploaded to central headquarters. Well, here they have these books that are huge, and every single person who walks into the clinic, there's information on them, where to reach them, what they have, all their information, and that somehow gets transposed into the national database. So for me, it was just such a thrill to see this like on that level, that there was reporting, granted not computer, but reporting going on in like the far reaches of the country. It was fascinating. So I think this is our attempt at fixing the.
This one's really for Lucy because she was the champion.
That was just a frustration. Yeah, it just looked like an easy fix, but sadly, it wasn't. It was just annoying me. But no, unfortunately, it wasn't. And actually, I do remember, just thinking back, when we had looked in the delivery room, we then were taken to there was a sort of separate room where I think they did some type of testing, and there was a fridge. Yeah, it was like and then they had kept all these medications in there. And I remember seeing a fridge, and the lady opened the fridge, and it was warm because it wasn't on, and it was full of like, I don't know, like vials of something. I'm not sure what it was. And I thought, that can't be good, that this medication. And I said to her, I said, "Oh, is your refrigerator's broken?" And she said, "Oh yeah, it's been broken for a while." And you just think, something you take for granted that I mean, I don't know if that affects whatever they were doing in there, and then the odd random chicken walking through. I don't know if anyone remembers the stray chickens.
Yes.
Sort of, you just think that doesn't happen very often where we live.
There were loads of stray chickens throughout.
Loads of stray chickens. But yeah, no, that reminds me. Yeah, it was such a shame because it was, such a basic thing, but sadly,
Hmm.
we couldn't make it work.
Well, I hope we've actually replaced their file cabinet somehow. I don't know.
That would be good.
Yeah, it would be. So here we are back in Freetown, and we have a visit with the amazing minister. You know, Corinne, since you've seen him last, he's now become the head minister. He's no longer just education. And what's happened in Sierra Leone over the last couple of years is public education has become totally free and available to everyone. So under his watch, 1.6 million children in the educational system turned into over 3 million quite recently, you know, within the last 2 years. And this, of course, has put a big strain on their facilities, on the lack of teachers, on all kinds of things. But the trajectory is going, you know, it's going in the right direction, put it this way. And he is largely responsible for this. So he was amazing. He is the one who actually made our visit later on in the day that was sort of impromptu with the First Lady possible. And he was terrific. Susan, do you have any thoughts on the dynamic minister?
Yeah, I thought he was, he didn't have a lot of time for us, but he, I think immediately determined that we needed to speak with the First Lady. And that alone, he sized up the situation and said, you just need this to happen, and really made it happen.
Mhm.
I think there's so much work to be done, as we saw in the education sector, just getting the poor kids, I say poor kids, getting the kids some soccer balls, whatever. He's got a lot of work to do, but I appreciated how quickly he sized up the situation, gave us his time, but he was ready to have us go in and see her and move on. So it was great. It worked out well.
It really did.
And before we move on from this picture, I just want to point out Dee and Patrick from the Sierra Leone Save the Children staff. They were amazing. Dee's in the front row there, and Patrick's off to the side. Dee
Yeah.
arranged everything and took us everywhere, and went with us out into the districts and was just fabulous and seemed to know everything. She was a
Everything
great
and everyone.
But yeah, the staff was really a highlight for me, seeing them in their element doing their work. That was fabulous. Oh, there's Patrick again in the front.
Can you please explain what you were doing?
Yeah.
Honestly,
Please.
Chicken dance? I don't know.
He said Patrick was saying something about the pose he always does, and I was messing around with him. But yeah, did not think it would be immortalized in front of quite so many people.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
welcome. You're very welcome.
That was a
Added
funny
it to a
thing.
PowerPoint. Yes.
Yeah.
But, this evening probably needs a little bit more of attention or accolades. I thought this was really a special time for us all to meet the rest of the folks in the SAVE office, all of whom were amazing and friendly and engaging. And I spoke to a number of young women who could totally understand the ending child marriage, and and a couple of them actually had been in that situation themselves, had a child at home, but was able to move on. Somebody in HR, and I didn't catch her name, and I'm like, you should go out and tell your story. So they really walked the talk, and I thought this was an understated event, but I took a lot away from this. And as some of you who were there may remember, I thought there also were many people in the room who were not from SAVE. So there were other charities, NGOs, I guess, working in the area, who it was very evident to me is how much respect Save the Children has working in the area, and how much these other places, want to be, right there with them and get that kind of attention and respect as well. So I think it was really a lovely evening, and appreciated all the work that went into that celebration.
Mhm.
And lots of impromptu speeches that evening as well.
I was about
That's
to say, we missed
go there.
Natasha that evening. I got roped into speaking, and that is a problem.
There's some brilliant speeches.
Right. So here we are on that night, or no, well, I don't know, it was the next to last night, where we had we were on our way to the beach, and we were in the car, all pretty casually dressed, and we got the call that the First Lady will see you now at her residence. And so with that, we saw this motorcade go by, which we think was her. And we turned around and went up the hill to see her. And it was a very interesting meeting. I'm going to pass it off to whoever wants to take it.
Well, I'll
I'll
say
start.
something. I mean,
Oh,
I
go
thought,
ahead, Allison. Go ahead,
yeah,
Allison.
it was fascinating. It was we were actually in her house, which by itself was kind of an amazing experience. And I think she spent an hour and a half with us. She was hilarious. She had all these stories, both about that specific day, where, to summarize, we were supposed to meet her at the office, and we saw her speeding away from the office, as Anya said, and she told us it was because she had been sick and she told her husband she wouldn't go to the office, and then somebody called her and told her husband was going home, so she like quick like got out of there and acted like she'd been home all day. She had a ton of stories like that. She had the ending child marriage bill in front of her that she was working on. She's very passionate about it. And just, I felt, was very generous with her time. And it was such a great kind of bookend for, I think that call that Anya talked about early on was May 2020. That might have been the first call I was on before I even joined 100 Strong. So for me, that was a big moment, like, oh, this really helped me, get me into the group. And here we are meeting her in person and really making progress. It really felt like she was one of the moments in the trip where I felt like we are at a tipping point, like things are happening. And if we just like can grab this moment, we can really, make a big change.
Yeah, she was really awesome. She loved that there were people from London. We had all kinds of, we heard all kinds of wild stories about her early days in London.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. But, from a practical standpoint, there were so many things she brought up that sort of helped the context of the problem. Like, as an example, she said to us something like, who do you think their first sexual relationship is with? And she said, I can tell you, 70 some percent, it's the motorcycle, the tuk-tuk driver that takes them to school. And she said, do you see those school buses out there? I listen to the girls and they're telling me that when the motorcycle driver comes and picks them up, that's generally their first relationship. Because think about it, you live in the country, you're going to hire, a secondary school. Your parents want you to get there safely. It's further away from your house. You can't just walk there. They're going to hire a guy on a motorcycle, and you're going to sit there hugging this guy on the motorcycle. That's like a lot of physical contact. And she said, we can't have that. That's why we're getting buses, So she had a lot of very interesting insights into behavior and how these small behaviors can really impact what goes on in the country. So I found that really, really interesting.
She also really loves Save the Children. So that was really nice. She had a very high opinion of the organization.
She had a great relationship with Ramatu as well, I know.
Yeah, they were like best friends. It was
They
kind
were.
of amazing.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was also great to hear about the Hands Off Our Girls campaign that she'd led nationwide across Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
That she was saying, like, you go to any remote village across the whole country, and I have been there. I have spoken to the children. I give them my time. They are my children, and there was billboards everywhere. So what was great is that people in all over Sierra Leone see this campaign, Hands Off Our Girls, as sort of like the law that they need to follow because the First Lady has been saying it to them. So that was great. And that's why she's then so passionate about pushing this national legislation through so that there is actual legal consequences to make sure that this is enforced. So that was really inspiring to hear about as well.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else, Lucy?
Yeah, again, I mean, it was kind of surreal, but it was educational. It was seeing the bill in front of her, and I sort of, well, I'll go through that at the weekend, and I could see a very quiet sort of determination from her to, make sure this happened, and there's obviously been a lot of hurdles and stumbling blocks along the way, which I think she's learned from and is trying to sort of navigate around.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that was great. Yeah, that day was hot. That's what I remember about that day. I was very, very hot that day.
That's true. I just remember those ladies screaming upstairs in the market because there was some sort of breach of protocol amongst the market ladies in
We
terms of
started a fight.
yes, in terms of who approached who. That was my memory of the market.
What happened
We
there
divided
exactly?
we divided into two groups to go into this market, and there was a saved person with each of the groups. So this group is with the fans. We're the more tempered group, and we bought the fans. We're ready to go. The other group went a little bit rogue and started the fights. There we go. I just had to get that back.
Poke the
That's
bear.
it.
Oh, so next.
That's it.
Oh, this was my little buddy. She was
Yeah.
following me all around the market and like grabbing my
Aw.
skirt. And I probably have 20 photos of her on my phone. She was so sweet.
Adorable. Yeah.
Very sweet.
So, and this is a side trip that Susan and Dee and I got to take to Bunce Island, which in its prime was the largest point of departure for the slave trade to the United States. And it's an island that's in the middle of the Delta near Freetown that's been abandoned. So it hasn't really seen any life for a couple of hundred years now. But the history of it was fascinating. And it was at one point a fort and a private house, and then this horrible place where people were brought from all parts of the Sierra Leone Delta to be shipped off on slave ships to Charleston. And at the height of the trade, the island was owned by a British fellow who was very prominent in British government, and his partner in America was actually a president of the Continental Congress at one point in the States. He was a trader in Charleston. And what happened is when the white settlers first came to that area of the country, they were farming rice, and a lot of them didn't really have experience farming rice. They didn't realize it was so backbreaking and such a difficult crop. And these two hatched this idea that they were going to bring slaves specifically from the area of like Liberia, Sierra Leone, because those populations had a lot of experience growing rice. So that's how that's why there's so many people of Sierra Leonean descent in the Carolina area, simply because of this, financial arrangement these two made. So it was very interesting. It was sobering. It was amazing. I mean, I don't know, Susan, if you want to add anything.
I absolutely agree. I didn't even appreciate that it was there. And when Anya told us about the opportunity, the history, and the gentleman who gave us the little tour, the cemetery, it really truly was sobering is a great word. And glad that I made that journey.
I'll just share that this is the final slide.
So I'm going to ask Allison to talk about this because Susan and I were not there.
Yeah, so while Anya and Susan were taking their boat ride, Lucy and I were with some Save the Children staff and met with Honorable Catherine, the parliamentarian. I found this hugely educational. I thought it was so fascinating. I didn't know what to expect going in. She had an amazing personal story, which was the same thing for the First Lady, the same thing for the minister. Everybody we talked to had these really intense personal stories involving generally child marriage and FGM and worrying about their own daughters. She spoke a lot about her daughters and trying to protect them. And then about how the process works to get a bill passed. And, the ending child marriage bill has been broken off into a standalone bill. So we were talking about how are they going to get this ending child marriage bill passed in Parliament. and they need basically every single person in Parliament to sign off on it. And she was hoping to sort of sponsor it and be the one to bring it to the floor and champion it. And this was where I really learned about all the meetings that have to happen, all the money that needs to go in to get the other parliamentarians in a room. Save the Children tries to get children in front of the Parliament members so that they can tell their story and convince them that these bills need to be passed. There are just a lot of moving parts, and we're really hoping that with Honorable Catherine's help that we'll be able to move this bill forward really quickly. Lucy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, exactly the same. I mean, she was worth mentioning. She's from the opposition as well, so
Yes.
it's very much a bipartisan effort with regards to this private members bill. But I really liked her. I thought she actually was quite practical. She was quite kind of, this is what needs to happen. These are the reasons why, and this is how we make it happen. So she kind of broke it all down. And I think after that meeting, or after that, it was then when Patrick came back in to the room, and as donors, we sort of wanted to try and understand, well, so how do we help? There's the bigger picture, which is the continuation of the project, but actually just the here and the now, which is this bit. What do you need? What does it look like? How do we help you to get? And I thought she was really good practically, and just giving a more an idea of how the whole sort of political makeup was formed. I really liked her a lot. I really did. Yeah. I'm glad I went. I mean, now I heard about Bunce Island. I wish I'd also gone on that, although again, it was incredibly hot.
So this is a perfect segue for Natasha to
Yes.
Tell us all the good news that we have about this particular trip and the outcome.
Do you know what? You're absolutely right. We were talking about timing, weren't we? There was obviously an element of jeopardy attached to this project because there needs to be funding behind it. It's a confluence of lots of different organizations that need to come together, but then there's also funding behind it. And so that was what was so wonderful about this trip, because it seemed that our trip coincided with that opportunity essentially. And so you're absolutely right, Anya. I mean, we are thrilled, aren't we, as a group, that we've had immediate success because we can announce that that the members of the visiting delegation, I think it's also the US Miles Mulcahy Fund, is that right?
Mulcahy Fund.
The girls, yeah, the UK Girls Impact Fund, all coming together to put their hands in their pockets to commit to providing the necessary funding, which is $125,000, which will allow Save the Children in Sierra Leone to help this bill come kind of across the line. So you're right. I mean, it's just amazing news, and it gives us, I hope, real impetus as a group of women who are all committed to doing something amazing. Early signs that we really can make really positive change really quickly. And this is the first thing we've got in on our CV, as it were. And what better news to share on this call?
Yeah, no, it's actually very exciting and very unique. As I was saying earlier to some, that you come back and there's almost an immediate reaction, and not only an immediate reaction, but you can actually help facilitate that next step. And of course, there are many steps after this. This was a pilot. We had a lot of discussions with the team about what are we going to do next, aside from this great momentous movement of the legislation. And I think it was decided that we were going to try to broaden our reach in Kowloon district as opposed to just jumping to another district. We were going to try to hit the whole district. We were also going to try to advance some livelihood initiatives for the girl champions, because a lot of them had, sort of aged out or will be aging out of school. And what comes next? We don't want to leave these beautiful young women high and dry. So there's the team in Sierra Leone is working on the follow-up to how we can broaden and make more impact with the work that we've started. So it's very exciting. So I want to end on another really amazing piece of news that we just got. And a lot of it has to do with Sierra Leone, and it's not this project, but it is all thanks to Dr. Diana and Dr. Sam, who have been very involved with the proposal design for something called the Sierra Leone Coastal Resilience Project. And we have just gotten approval for a $27 million initiative with SAVE from the Green Climate Fund to continue this work. So thank you, Dr. Diana. That's amazing, amazing work.
Anya, could Dr. Diana tell us what she did? I don't know if I know that.
Absolutely. The floor is
it's so incredible. You know how you're giving and you say, oh, I wish I could give more. I wish I could give more. Well, this was such a big bang for the buck. I mean, it's just fantastic. I mean, we supported it financially, but we also had meetings with the crew in terms of the people preparing the proposal, working on the proposal, you know, really optimizing it, dreaming of getting, you know, this much money. And I mean, it worked. And we've just been so thrilled. Oh my goodness gracious. It's $26.8 million, and it's the Coastal Resilience Project. So what they're going to do is work on conservation and restoration of the really key mangrove ecosystems that they were losing. But these ecosystems are their livelihood. It's their life. It's their health. And you know, it's just been thrilling to be able to leverage that little bit of input, right, to make it happen like that. So I would say, you know, think about also funding different projects. Now, Mary, I'm sure you can come up with other opportunities like this because, you know, it's just been so thrilling. But I do want to say that your trip and everything that you guys did, it looks so amazing. I mean, incredible. And you look so radiantly happy, because you're on your mission, right? You're so radiantly happy, and it's very inspirational. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your whole trip with us. So, and thanks for everything, really.
Well, thank you, Dr. Diana, because you are, as you know, a huge inspiration to all of us. Especially for those of you that don't know, Dr. Diana runs the mentoring program, which is one of our favorite 100 Strong initiatives. And this year we also have the pleasure of having the UK team join us on that. And it's been an amazing journey, and all thanks to Dr. Diana. So thank you. So Natasha, any parting words? Anyone else want to add anything?
I'd like to just say a couple of words, Anya, if you don't mind. One is just to kind of reiterate everything that I said at the beginning, but with a little precursor to that. And that's just to thank all of you, and particularly the logistics with Mary, who's just so completely and utterly awesome, and Lucy, your whole team, and then Tam and Florence from the UK for putting this whole trip together. I mean, I've been so fortunate that I've traveled with Save the Children to multiple locations over the years, but there was something so special, as I said, about this sisterhood. And for those who came on the trip, you'll all know what I'm talking about. But for those who weren't on this trip, please come on the next one. It is so life enhancing. It's so special. It's so powerful. It's life changing because it connects all of us together, but also that we have so much power together. You know, we feel quite insignificant here in the UK, but actually to join up with our UK sisters and our American sisters, sorry, was really special for us. We're in awe of what you've done already. We feel like we've got to match you, but we really want to work with you. And we are just so excited to be on this journey with you all together. So thank you very, very much, all of you, for inspiring us. And let's plan another trip very soon.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. We will be doing that. Right, Mary?
We're already talking about locations.
Beautiful.
I think that was what we did on the last day.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
Fantastic. Right. Well, so
Wonderful.
lovely to see everyone, and, please reach out with any questions, and we'd love to hear from you. And it's just such a joy to see everyone. Take care.
Thank
Thank you so
much.
much.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for
Bye-bye.
sharing.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Bye.
Lovely to see you all.
Bye.